All right, let's get started. Hey, thanks for joining us. Wherever you're tuning in from, let me know where you're joining us from. I always like to see the different states and around the country. Man, I've got a great topic today, and it's the Olympic goal setting model. Before we get your season kicked in and get started, it's important to put goals on paper. And man, in this broadcast, I'm going to share with you the the goal getting model that I learned from an Olympic gold medalist and a multiple world record holder. And I've used this goal setting model for over 10 years now, and I've run it through really close to 8,000 athletes in this time frame, from in my academy to the university, all the schools that I've worked with, to our workshops, and to our professional athletes, professional teams, and help them working to accomplish their goals, no matter what their goal is or what your eyes are set on. This is nothing like you've ever experienced before, and I'm excited to share it with you. So if you've never met me before, I'm Sean Humphreys. I'm a high performance coach. I specialize in changing the performance of individuals, whether you're a highly skilled athlete or on your way to being one, or just want to improve your performance. You're in the right place. So, I want to make sure that you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up. Okay, I can see where we're at here. This is good. All right. Okay. Also, if you have questions, just shoot me a question, because if I don't get to it now, I'd love getting to them on the back side when we go to a rebroadcast. And questions are great, because also, remember, this is going to be on our YouTube channel as well from our rebroadcast. That's where you can check us out. So let's get started here. So when we look at goals, so what are your goals for the season? Okay, if you haven't set them, there's a good chance you're probably going to get beaten by someone who's already set them. Goal setting is a common practice among champions, and it's one of the common threads that you see with world-class champions. And tonight we're going to look at goal getting and how the Olympic gold medalists go about setting and going and getting their goals, why it works for some and why it's not effective for others. But then I'm going to give you a goal setting system that works, right? So it's not easy to do, and here's why. And so when you look at it, it says first there's in goal setting, there's basically two common models or methods that people use or they try, and neither of them seem to work. And the first one is they try to set realistic goals, and the second one is setting a big sky goal. So some people believe that you should always attain your goals, and so they set a realistic goal. This means they will look at what they did last year and try to do an assessment on that, whether it's their scoring or if it's a company that need to move the revenue by X amount of percentage, and that's going to be their expectation for this coming year. Does it sound good? I don't know a single Olympic gold medalist or a world champion that use this method successfully. Okay? Why? Because there's nothing realistic about winning a gold medal, or setting a world record, or winning a Super Bowl, or a World Series, or reaching dominant status in your sport or in your business. There's nothing realistic about that. Big goals are more irrational than realistic, and if you want to be realistic, you'd better keep your goals low. I mean, that's pretty simple. You do that and you'll be beaten by everybody so often, you'll soon begin to doubt the system and you'll abandon it. And I see this happen all too often. And another example is the system that's vague in defining your goal. For example, I want to shoot better this year. or I want to have lower scores. That doesn't work. I mean, really, what does that mean? What does better mean? I want to perform better. What does that mean? So, okay, so let's look at the other systems. So I call it the big sky or the pie in the sky goals. The advantage of this system is that there's really no upper limits to the goals. And for example, my goal is to win every competition this year, or breaking all the records and beating everyone that I compete against. I mean, you got to admit that sounds appealing, right? Who wouldn't want to have a year like that? I mean, I know I would. But if you try this system, you're almost guaranteed you're going to miss your goal. Okay? Most people who have a banner year or banner years, rarely, if ever, they never anticipated to have that banner year. I mean, just like Drew Brees, right? He broke the records this year. He broke Peyton Manning's record. And Michael Thomas set, the record for touchdown catches. I mean, they never planned on that, or even it was never foreseen to see that in advance. It was a byproduct of them setting their goals and following the steps of performing well. And we're going to get into that. So why is that? It's because the elite are not thinking about outcome. They're not even going there. These ultra elite athletes are not even thinking about that. So what are they thinking about? The ultra elite athletes are thinking about each step of performing. That's what they're thinking about. What's my next step? What's the next down? What's the next pass? What's the next play? What's the next shot? What's the strategy for this shot? The commitment to that strategy, the commitment phase, running the mindset program, executing the shot, and then reinforcing after the task. These systems that we're talking about here, the big sky goal and the realistic goals, they're flawed. And the reason they're flawed is because they're outcome oriented. And that's a big problem if you ask me, because the focus is on the score or winning the competition, just like we talked about. They want to they want to beat everybody in competition. They want to win every game. I want to average even par, or I want to average under par. That's not realistic. It should be on your goals should be on the steps of performing, of getting a score that can win in competition. That's what your goals should be. Okay? Once you take your mind off your score and focus on the steps of performing well, you're dealing with something you alone can control. I mean, once your mind shifts away from the things that you have control of, you're in trouble. That's why I'm going to take you through this goal-getting model so that you can kind of get a better understanding of this stuff. You can't control what it will take to win a competition. You can't. You can't control what the competitors, do. And you can't even predict with accuracy what score will win a competition. What you're trying to do is focus on your steps of performing well. And we talk about that a lot in these lectures and in our workshops and training with athletes. And there's one thing that you can predict, is that you can predict the steps of performing. And those have to be defined, measured, and timed. And that's the steps of performing is what you control. And when the steps are defined, measured, and timed, you can replicate them and you can duplicate them. You can predict and control how many days a week you can train. Wouldn't you agree? You can control the time and the effort, the commitment to the pursuit of the goal. You can control what you think about during the action, what you think about during training. You can control the competitions that you enter and how you choose to train for each event. You can control your coaches that you choose to use, and or the training system that you choose to use. And are you using a training system? If you're not, you're probably in trouble. And I know that for all these years. My advice is to only set goals on things that you can control, right? Keep your focus on you, not your competitors. Rehearse in your mind the steps of executing a combination of mindset feelings and technical moves that get results. Those need to be defined, and you need to be able to trust and commit to those in what you're doing. Your success is determined how well you can control what is in front of you, not worrying about the outcome. Your success is determined how well you control what's in front of you. What's my next shot? What's my next strategy? The commitment to the strategy, the commitment phase, running the mindset program, executing shot, then reinforcing it and starting over. Most books and formulas on goal setting are outcome oriented, and I got a problem with it. I have no problem with setting a goal to have a winning performance. Okay, I've got no problem setting a goal to having a winning performance. Move up in class or to make a team. If you're setting a goal to identify the steps or the process of attaining the goal, okay? You've got to identify the steps and the process of attaining the goal. What am I going to have to do to attain this goal? What do those steps look like, okay? So when we talk about, it's interesting because the steps in the process of attaining the goal, let's talk about attainment just for a second, because sometimes that gets kind of shoved under the rug. So, maybe we should define attainment, because attainment and accomplishment are not the same thing. Okay? Accomplishment is about outcome, and it's important, and we determine who wins by accomplishment. Okay? It's the score, it's the color of medal, and your place on the list of the competitions of our competitors on the scoreboard, right? Okay, so accomplishment is all about outcome, all right? And it's important, again, and we determine who wins by accomplishment. So what this does not measure, okay, what this doesn't measure is what you've learned or your growth as a competitor, okay? It doesn't measure who you've become, okay? I think this is critical in development of anything that you're doing, whether it's sports, whether it's in business, or whatever it is. So, attainment is the total of your accomplishments and becoming. So it's like when I'm working with these athletes, okay, and we're growing their self-image, and we're training them to do something that they haven't done before, okay? So they have to become X. They have to become better at this. They have to become better at their short game. They got to become better at their 4-footers or 5-footers. They got to become better at distance putting. And these are thresholds that we have to cross, and there are actual numbers that they have to get to for it to have an impact on their outcome. So they have to become better at these so that they can attain what their goals are. So, for example, is that if it's not like me to make 4-footers in competition, then that needs to become like me to do that in my training. And I have to become better at doing that so I can attain that type of performance in competition. Attainment is a total of accomplishments and becoming. Accomplishment is how you measure the external, and becoming is how you measure the internal. So let me repeat that. Accomplishment is how you measure the external, all right, of outcome, and becoming is the measure of the internal. It's you becoming better at anything that you're wanting to accomplish. Okay? Winning is just a way to measure outcome. That's all it is. It also reflects, here's an interesting piece too, is that winning also reflects who the person has become. All right? So if you followed us, we talk about there's, the 4 stages of an athlete: training to learn, training to compete, training to win. And training to win is about having winning performances. And winning performances are actually you becoming and then attaining. All right? So when you look at, winning measures the outcome, it also reflects the person who they've become. It's a mirror to life, right? It's a snapshot of who this player is. I mean, winning really is. It's a snapshot of who that player is, as well as how well he or she has scored, okay? We compete in this field of life, and we become competitors. And let me tell you, that's the beauty of sport, or sports and athletics, is because it gets us to become competitors. Man, if you're going to survive in this world, if you're going to survive in sports, man, you've got to learn how to compete. I mean, we become a good athlete or a great athlete. Okay, we become that. We don't just produce a great score. It doesn't happen. And you got to remember that we have to become a good athlete or become a great athlete. I mean, attainment, consisting of becoming something should be our goal, not simply accomplishment. So attainment should be consistently of becoming something. All right? And if I become this, I mean, you see it. You see our post here on Facebook all the time with the results of these athletes. I just posted a post 10 days ago or whatever it was, and of a young athlete that I'm working with down in Delray Beach. She made 330 in a row from 5 feet. Now, I posted it as 4 feet because people say, well, that's impossible to make 330 in a row from 4 feet or 5. She made it from actually 5 feet. I mean, it took her 3.5 hours. The kid's 14 years old. So you don't think it's not becoming like her to make these 4-footers? She went on to play in a competition later on, a week later. She made everything inside of 8 feet in 2 days. So she had a winning performance because she's becoming better, and she attained the championship and she won. So these things are critical in setting up your goals, and that's what I'm leading into, and so I want to share this. So you do this by goal setting for both what you want to accomplish and who you wish to become in the process. Okay? You do this by goal setting for both what you want to accomplish and who you wish to become in the process. Okay? We talk about this all the time, is that most athletes are working on the skill acquisition of their sport, and they're not working on the knowledge acquisition. These are the things that we're talking about right now, that I talk with the athletes all the time, that they're becoming. Their training has to be set up, and your training, just remember this, has to be set up so that you become. And it's got to be defined, it's got to be measured, and it's timed. And if you can replicate it and duplicate it on a regular basis, you've got an opportunity to become. Setting goals help you plan, and that's beneficial, but there's dangers to avoid as well. So one mistake that many people make is to equate their worth as a person, whether they can reach their goals or not. If the goal is reached, then I'm successful, but then if I don't reach it, I'm no good. Well, there's a way in competition to set those goals, and it's outcome goals and position goals. And we've talked about that in other broadcasts. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But for instance, like if I make an A in a class or an A on a project, I'm an outstanding person. If I make a C, I'm average. And I'm a failure if I make an F. Your value as a person is more a function of your character, your beliefs and actions towards other than the results on the playing field. I'm just telling you that right now. And you see this day in, day out with these world-class athletes in these world-class teams. I mean, I'm very partial to the Saints, and man, they've got a lot of guys like that it's their character. And you listen to them after the competition and how they talk. I don't know if you saw the game with Philadelphia, and their quarterback got hurt and they had to put in their second string quarterback, Cowan, and he's 40 years old. He's been in the league, I think, for 17 years. And his interview after the game was just amazing. It was heartbreaking. It was like, man alive, this guy laid it out on the line, everything that he did, and he played a damn good game. And unfortunately, the team they played just was a little bit better than them. But you can't equate your worth as a person in reaching your goals. And secondly, if you're going to goal set, remember to always have another goal to attempt once you've attained one. And so always remember that once you accomplish the goal, you need to have another one set, okay? And that's critical. And if you don't, you might feel a bit lost and, reach the current goals. So in a goal-getting system, all right, and we're going to get ready to go into this here, and it's a habit that separates the top 5% from all the competitors. It's a habit. And the 95% just play the practice of carefully setting goals, and most people never set them, and it's no surprise that they don't. Most of the athletes that I work with, they've never set goals. They've never been taught how to do it. However, every major corporation sets goals. Every government sets goals. Every builder who's going to build a building has a blueprint. Every banker that has a written contract on a loan or a borrower that's going to pay something back has a written plan and written goals. Is this when this has to be paid back? Among individuals, normally only the super successful ever bother to set personal goals and plan their work. I mean, only the super successful. And that's what we're trying to do, is trying to educate and train these young athletes in learning how to set goals on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis and work those goals all the way to the end. So let's dive into the model on what it works like. So it's a 10-step Olympic goal-getting model. And the stuff that I'm talking about right now leading up to that is all the things that are happening within the goals. Okay, so step number 1, you've got to determine a goal worth trading your life for. Okay, that's what the Olympians say. They trade their life for it because it's 4 years of their life for one event. And if you go to multiple Olympics, I've known coaches that have gone, or players or athletes that have gone to 3 to 4. You go to 3, that's 12 years of your life, okay? This goal setting system is designed for big goals of your life, okay? This step here, okay? Here's the thing, you've got to find goals that excite you, okay? And you must be specific. The more you can identify exactly what you want, the better chances of you obtaining it. Okay? So when I'm talking with just our athletes at the college level, I know we got some college coaches jumping in and watching it this evening that they're actually running this system, and I work with their schools. They determine a goal worth trading their time for, and the time of everything else outside of school in college. And it's difficult to do. It takes a lot of time and management. We talk about those things, okay? So number one, you got to determine a goal worth trading your time for, all right? Now, number two, this is critical here because this wasn't explained to me, and I learned this at the Olympic level, and I had no clue about setting goals, I'll be honest with you. You've got to decide when you want this goal. I'm talking about the exact day and date that you want it. And if you want to have, if you need it, you want to have this happen in August 15th, 2020, then that's the date. But you've got to set the date, okay? So putting a time limit on your goals helps you formulate a plan to achieve them. That's the bottom line, okay? Well, I want to accomplish in 2020, this, and this. Well, there's 365 days in the year. When do we plan on losing this? For example, it's like you've got to have a plan. So for example, if your goal is to lose 20 pounds in 20 weeks, you could do that by losing a pound a week, right? But if you change the time limit to 20 days, then the plan would seriously have to change, okay? So you've got to set the exact day and date that you want to accomplish this goal, and you've got to be realistic about your time and your commitment and your perseverance to the pursuit of that goal. Excuse me, get tongue twisted here. To see if you can accomplish this goal in this time frame. Because that number two sets everything up, right? Okay. Now number three, you got to list the pay value, okay? Why do you want the goal? You got to list all the reasons that are important to you for achieving the goal. You got to make certain that the goal you set is big enough to be life-changing for you. Yeah. The goal's got to be set big enough to be life-changing for you. I mean, that's what these freaking things are about, right? People are motivated by three things, okay? Promise of gaining something, okay? Fear of loss, and recognition. Those are the three things that people are motivated by. Promise of gain, fear of loss, and recognition. You set a goal big enough to move you to change your habits and your attitudes. You've got to set a goal that's big enough and important to you to change your habits and your attitudes. And if it's too small, it just won't be worth it to make these changes in your life. Bottom line. Also, your goal must be your goal and not someone else's goal. All right? Is the pay value personally rewarding to you? Okay? Is the pay value? If you put all this time and effort into this and all this sacrifice and changing your habits and your attitudes, is it worth it to do it? I don't know. Only you can answer that question. Okay? All right, step 4. All right, now we got to evaluate the obstacles in your way. Okay? This takes on a new meaning. Again, you must be specific. Okay? What you must do to overcome each goal. All right, so for example, what habits and attitudes must change for you to reach your goal? Those are obstacles. What habits and attitudes have to change? Remember, nothing's going to get better until you change. I mean, that's the bottom line. You got to change it, okay? Everyone wants to change their outcome, and I hear that all the time. I want to change my score. I want to win. I want to put myself in chance of winning. But few are willing to change the steps or the training to become. Everybody wants to change outcome. Everybody wants to change the results. They're focused on the results. but few are willing to change the steps or the training to become. What new skills do you need? How much additional time must you invest? And what are you willing to give up? Okay. Also, if you don't manage these obstacles, okay, and you don't commit to these obstacles, they're going to turn into barriers and they're going to kick your butt. You're not going to get it done. So you've got to manage this stuff. You got to change your habits and your attitudes to get there, okay? Step 5, okay? What is your plan to get your goal? What's the plan? The difference between a wish and a goal is a goal has a written plan to get it. Again, the difference between a wish and a goal has a written plan. Wishes usually don't come true anyway. You know, goal with written plans have a much higher chance of being reached. Planning saves time, and it does one thing: it provides direction. Planning saves time, but you've got to take the time to plan. But once you plan, it provides direction. You've got to have that. You've got to have the direction in your plan to start becoming, so that you have a chance to attain your goals. Okay? All of these connect with one another, all right? Now, once we get to number 5, now we get to number 6. Okay, now we've got to evaluate. So number 5 is, what is your plan to get your goal? All right? Now we move to number 6. Now we've got to evaluate your plan before you proceed. Remember, you've got to take the time to plan, and then when you plan it, it provides direction. So what is that direction? Now you've got number 6, you've got to evaluate the plan before you proceed. Okay? You got to ask questions. Okay? How will going for this goal affect my priorities in my life? I mean, these are very legitimate questions. How will the people I care about be affected by this plan? That's very legit. Is the plan consistent with my fundamental values? I mean, that's why you got to have the right people on the bus helping you. Okay? Do I really believe this plan will work? Okay? Do I believe I can work this plan? I mean, that's critical. Do I believe that I can work this plan? Yeah, I might believe all this other stuff, but man, if I can't work this plan, I'm in trouble. Is the prize worth the price? I mean, that's the most important step in the goal-getting process, or the goal-setting process. Okay? You got to ask yourself, is the pay value worth the price I have to pay for it? If the answer is positive, chances are your goal and plan are correct. If the plan and pay value don't match, you're going to have to change something. You're going to have to change the goal. You're going to have to change the date, the time frame. Okay. Now number 7. Okay. Now we got to schedule the plan. Okay. I'm big on scheduling things. Okay. I'm big on writing things down. And if you've hung around me, you know I'm a nutcase about writing things down. Okay, that's one of the traits that I've learned from the very best in the world, is they write everything down. And at the end of the day, man, they reinforce everything. What I did, what I learned, what solutions do I need, what I did great, what's my goal statement. Okay, so we've got to schedule your plan. We often fail to remember that scheduling is the vital art of the planning process. Okay? We got to remember that scheduling is the vital art of the planning process. We got to put it on a calendar. I mean, I'm huge about putting things on a calendar so that you can see every single day. Principle of the picture. You know? I mean, it's critical that we see these things every day. I mean, it's reinforcement, right? What we think about, what we talk about, and what we write about improves the probability of this thing happening. When you set these goals, man, you need to be thinking about these things every single day. You need to think about the process and the steps and the deadlines and how I'm going to go about it this day and the level of intensity of my training, and that my training must have higher consequences than the competition. to push myself and grow myself so that I can become. And then once we get to number 8, we got to start now. You are ready to go. You got to begin now. You can't hesitate. You can't wait. You just can't pause. Once you get all this stuff put in place, man, you've got to hammer it. You got to get after it. You got to put out high quality effort consistently over time. And when you do that, and if you do that consistently, you're going to accomplish your dreams. There's no doubt. If you stay with it. And number 9, okay, prior to reaching your goals, you've got to always set a new one to take its place. Prior to reaching your goals, you've got to always set a new one to take its place. So I found that out personally, and man, it was really it was a very positive awakening, but at the time that it happened, it wasn't. So in early 2000s, I wrote and published my first book with McGraw-Hill. And it took me about, when it was all said and done, about 15 to 18 months from start to finish. I had the concept, but once the book was done, and once the book was released, then I did a book tour around the United States. Man, it was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. It became a front list bestseller. Then once everything was done, man, I kind of hit this lull. I mean, I really kind of went into this like slight depression. I mean, I really was. And I was talking to a really good friend of mine, and he's like, Humphreys, you've always been extremely goal-oriented. And you've always set goals. You've worked the plans across the finish line. You're always about setting the dates and getting them done. And you know what? He goes, look, dude, you don't have another goal set. And I got to thinking about it. Man, he was right. I'd gotten this book across the finish line, and I hadn't set another goal right when I'd finishing that book. And man, that just hit off like a bolt of lightning. And I was like, man, I've got to get after it, Humphreys. Got to reset the goal. So number 9 is so critical. Prior to reaching your goal, okay, always set a new one to take its place, okay? It's critical. And then step 10, you got to hold on to the end or trade up. I'll tell you a great story. I coached a young kid that played at Colleyville Heritage here in Texas, and he was started working with him when he was like in 8th or 9th grade. 8th grade's when it was, and at that time, he'd worked his way up to a sophomore. He had like a 75 scoring average. He was well on his way. He wanted to play college golf. And we were headed that direction. He was starting to become, right? And he was such a great student. He played classical guitars. He was in vocals. He took advanced AP courses, took college courses. And the kid was a super brainiac, right? And a good golfer. And we always talked about, I said, hey, Alan, I said, what do you think you might go into? What do you love? He's like, he loved the sciences. He loved engineering. And we talked about it. He goes, yeah, I think I want to be an astrophysicist. I'm like, wow, that's pretty crazy. And so the time kind of went on. And one day he said, hey, Coach, can we have lunch? I'm like, sure, we can have lunch. So we sat down. He said, Coach, you always talked about the goals, and we've always followed the plan. He goes, step number 10 says, hold on to the end or trade up. He goes, Coach, I figured out what I want to do. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I do want to become an astrophysicist, but I need to take all these other courses outside of school and in order to prep. And I said, I want to go to the Air Force Academy, and that's my goal. And can you help me out? I'm like, man, I don't even know what an astrophysicist is, but I'll do whatever I can to help. And he said, look, Coach, you talk about not giving up, but trading up. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trading up. So don't be surprised that along the way, in the pursuit of one goal, another goal comes along that's more important than the current goal that you're working on, and you trade up. And don't let anybody else ever tell you that you're giving up, that you're abandoning it. Something came along that's more important than the current goal that you're working on, and you're trading up. Man, I've enjoyed putting this broadcast together for you. Man, these goals, man, they get me going, if you can't already tell. And I hope they help you as well. This is going to be available on a rebroadcast on YouTube, and you can join me here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern for the broadcast. And hey, if you know someone that could benefit from this, pass it along, have them check it out. Hey, also too, if you're interested in being part of my private client group, hey, let's schedule a discovery call. If you're an athlete that is aspiring to play college golf, our college onboarding program could be for you. It's an amazing program. We're putting kids in college left and right. But also too is that if you want to kickstart to this EPS training program, this Olympic training program, I'm currently hosting 2-day EPS college training camps in South Florida in Palm Beach at our private training facility down there. And we also get to use Palm Beach Atlantic University, and those facilities are off the charts, as well as our training facilities there in Palm Beach. You can check that out on our website. We've got them up right now. You can catch me by email if you got questions or inquiries. Hey, I'd love to have a discovery call with you about maybe where your direction is, your goals. You can reach me at Sean@SeanHumphreys.com. You can catch me on my direct line at 972-793-7255. Again, thanks for joining me this evening. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed putting it together.